who's leading the show today, but I will stop talking and hand it over.
Will be me today. Hello, everyone. All right, let me get this all set up and share my screen. It will load. Okay. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. I want to start off, everything we're going over today will be put into a convenient document to reference. So everything I go over, even if it's going to be a lot, so don't worry. We'll have something in hand for you guys to read over, and it'll walk you through the steps of what I did. Mainly just want to show you a lot of the functions of Cascade, how to use it, where to navigate, all that jazz, so you're familiar with it, and you can hit the ground running when you start playing around with our sandbox. To start off, so we're going to do a sign-in. It's going to be your C number. It's all going to be lowercase, and then your password. After you would sign in, we would head over to the dashboard. I'm going to show you over the dashboard just to see what it looks like, how to set it up so you can have a lot of convenient features. Afterwards, in the dashboard, we're going to go straight to the page editor, show you how to navigate the Cascade editor, where to open up files, folders, add files, all the meaty bits of working. Account tools afterwards is to showcase any type of troubleshooting methods, check your notifications, histories, and all that to further show off what else you can do to troubleshoot any of the stuff we have going on in Cascade. Afterwards, we can do questions. Feel free to interrupt me if I go too fast, too slow, something you want me to repeat, something you want me to explain. I'd be more than happy to. And this whole thing's going to be recorded, so if you want to run it over again, we'll have that all set for you. All right, let's get into it. All right. So let's go straight to the sign-in. So it's going to be your C number, all lowercase. It's going to be with a password, normal login. We'll have the link out in chat. Throw it in chat real quick as well, just so we know. Want to already throw it? No. Okay. Here you go. So just a bookmark it for later. So once you sign in, I'm actually going to go under as one of the users here, just to, because everyone has different permissions. So I just want to show you from your point of view of what everything will look like. Do Ryan Call. Cool. So we're going to be Ryan Call today. So here's what your dashboard will look like. It will provide a first glance view of what's going on in Cascade, any notifications, the sites you're working on, any tasks you may set up. Additionally, you have these little widgets here. You can always close them out, remove them, edit them. First start off with one of the widgets up here. If you want to add a widget, for example, you want to add something to track any broken links on your website, that's a very helpful feature to have, a link checker. So you can add something like this, a link checker. You can select your website, we'll do sandbox, save it. And so it'll run a link checker and then it'll update you with anything that breaks down. So that's an example of the widget. And if I wanted to edit, I can just hit the little pencil right here, and then I can change it to what I want. So that's one of the examples of the widget. So once you first get started, feel free to check it out, play around with it, set it up to how you want to. It does come in handy with a lot of the stuff you do. Pull this off to the side. And so that's how you edit widgets. Next is going to be the My Content in the top right. So My Content is usually anything pertaining to you, anything you've saved, your drafts, what you worked on previously, anything that you've made. This will be the place to check up on that. It's very helpful because it does help when you're working on a lot of assets, or you're working on assets in different places. You can check the history of it. So that's going to be in the top right under My Content. Afterwards, we're going to go back to the dashboard. If you want to go back to the dashboard, you can click the icon here in the top left, and it'll bring you right back. And now we're going to go to our site. So on the top left, we can go to our site. And so we only have Sandbox right now for the user. And so it'll show you what sites you have available. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, before I do. So in your dashboard as well, you can also search up assets. So if you want to search up files, pages, folders, up here in the top right, you got to search. And so this lets you see your recent folders, files, and things you've edited or made. and it also allows you to search for them as well. So if you want to go right back to editing a page, it'll be right there, or you can search for it. So top right search is for assets, top left search is for pages. Top left, we're going to go straight to Sandbox DNRC. And before I begin, is there anything you want me to repeat? Am I going too fast? Anything needs more clarification? And I also take silence as, no, you're good to go. Please keep going. So don't feel like you have to say anything. Good?
I'll ask.
Cool.
So is that when
Oh.
we have
Mhm.
when we have access, you know, what you clicked on where it said Sandbox DNRC, would it have a list of all of the pages we own individually? Like these are what Ryan Call's allowed to see, or is it the
Yes.
website holistically? Like what would we actually see there?
Right there's the sites you have access to. So Ryan only has access to Sandbox DNRC. So the website he's only able to see and have access to is Sandbox DNRC. So if he had access to the real DNRC website, right below it, it would just say DNRC, and he can open up the pretty much the entire root direct, or the entire place of the page. So pretty much it's access to a website to make edit and add content on is what you're going to see in the top left. And since I'm Ryan, and Ryan has only been assigned as a someone to edit on the Sandbox DNRC website, he can only see that. So that's the only website he has access to.
Thank you.
Chase, I might jump in really quick on that one just to further answer her question. So what you guys will see today, we don't have all of the access as granular as it will be within your website. So each one of you will have access to your division's area of pages within the website itself. You'll be able to read all of the other pages, but not necessarily edit anyone else's besides your division pages. So just keep that in mind moving forward.
So in the real world,
Exactly.
we'll be able to see all of the pages, but not edit them all, or in the real world, we will only see the ones we can edit. Sorry for the.
No, you're totally fine. You'll be able to see all of them. So we
Okay.
grant read access to all pages for you guys.
Perfect.
And then we'll be specific about what you can edit.
Thank you.
Cool. Exactly like Caitlin said. We're going to make sure you guys are set up so that you can edit the content you're supposed to. And so that permissions should be good to go once you get set up. And this goes depending on what department you're on, what user, so forth. To continue on, so just to start from the beginning of the dashboard, top left, I'm going to go to my site. I click up here. I can also click onto my sites, is usually the sites you recently visit. So I'm going to open that up. So here I am. The setup is very similar to your file explorer. So you got all your folders here up on the left side, the pages as well, and the root directory where everything's pretty much is. And that's where I am currently. To know where if you want to see where you're at currently, you can always check up here in the right below this folder symbol. This is what directory I am in. So if I want to be in, let's say, Board of Oil and Gas, I can click View Folder. And that's now my current directory. And that's also showing me what's inside as well, the pages or any folders. Today we're doing Trust Lens. So we'll go right down here to the bottom. And if I select that, that's what I'm in. And it shows you what folders I have access to. Now to have an overview of what the tools we have here. So that's our folder navigation. This is going to be how you get to places. And it's important to know what directory you're in, because if you were to add content, that's where it would default to. So it's always important to be like that. So know where you are so that you're not in like forestry trying to add something, or you're in something you're not supposed to. So it does help make it easier to know where you are when you add content and see where all of this is. And you can always left click on the folder itself just to preview it. I'm not actually inside of it, but I am able to just navigate and take a look inside as well. And so now we have our folder opened. We can now move on to the other parts of the site. We already covered that. So for selecting a file and folder, so if I want to go further in, let's say, since I'm in the Trust Lens folder, this is your guys' folder. This is your index page right here. This is the very first page inside. I'm going to click on that. So when you click on a page, it will render a preview for it. and so that you can see, and this is where you will be able to see any changes you make, kind of preview it before you push it onto live or test sites. So I've opened up Trustland pages, and so here I am, and nothing's final. Like I said, this is a sandbox for you guys to play around in. Everything's subject to change, but this is what this is what it would look like. Now, if I want to edit the page, and once again, I open this up, it shows that I'm in Sandbox, Trustlands, and I'm in the index now. I can click here in the top right and click edit. So this will open up the folder or the page I'm currently in and automatically set up the editor. So here's your editor. I'm going to show you the important bits. So display name and title. To include it in the menu is also another option to help routing. We can move on from breadcrumbs. We want to focus on the main content here. If you scroll down, you got your banner image, which is this image here you have in the background. Very easy to set up. You can always disable it. You want it yes or no. And to add an image, you can just simply click on it where it says image file here. And now this on the right side will bring up a navigator to pull from where's your image. And you can always upload as well. So if you already have a banner on your folder, all you have to do is once you're in the editing page, click the image file area, go to upload, and now you can throw your content right up here. And it should default to your DNRC images folder. And so that's where all your images will be hosted at. So now I can drop in anything I want. We already have banners in here, so I'm gonna go up to here and I go to browse. And you also have some other options. If you have some images you're working with, it'll show under your recent. If you have any that you favored or starred, it'll be under starred. But we're gonna go under browse. Now browse, I'm gonna show you a little bit of the navigation. So right here at the top, just shows I'm just in the images folder because that's where my picture is pulling from. If I click sandbox right here, I go right back to the root where I can see everything. And if I click on the images again, I'm now in the images folder. So if you ever find yourself in a different place, you can always click the root here and then click into the folders you want where your images are hosted at. And so now you have a selection of images and a preview with it. So now I can look around here and see what banner I like. So let's say I'm gonna do banner 6. Hit choose. So now that's been added. And then also you do have to provide alternate text for e-readers or if the image doesn't display. And then you can also add a heading or any type of content. But for now, we're going to just add a banner image because this is what it's supposed to do. We got our banner. We can go down a little bit. And now our bread and butter, which is rows and columns. And I had an image to show this, but I will show it shortly. Rows and columns are going to be your bread and butter. You always start everything with a row. So if I wanted to add a row, you always have this plus mark right here. And it will add a row right below that. And from there, I can add content. So in your row, when you have one opened, you have your heading, what heading size, if you want to have a background color. And from this, we're still going to update in the future with presets according to the theme so that you can just start playing a lot of the editing. You can just simply click, I want this type of color. And then for my row background, I can want this color as well. And so for the heading color, it just changes the background of the heading where the text is. And for the row background, that's where all your content, all the stuff you're throwing in, that's going to be their background. Additionally, you can add spacing for that, but we're just going to focus on the important content. Container width, you have partial, fluid, and full. Partial is, as it is named, doesn't cover from screen to screen. It's going to fill up a certain amount. Fluid is similar to full. I always get them mixed up, so please bear with me. Fluid, a little bit more responsive. And full is going to be from edge to edge. That's going to be from the very left to the very right of your screen. Right here, you see my banner. That's the entire width. Now, right below that is going to be your layout, left, right, and even. So this controls where your content is going to sit. Is it going to sit, is it going to share the space together? Is it going to be evenly spaced out? Or is one side going to be the dominant side and it's going to have more room to grow, while the other side is going to be forced to shrink if the screen changes? For right now, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it even. And mind you, we're just working in row right now. And in row, we can also reverse the order. So on mobile screens, when things collapse, images start going on top of each other. Sometimes if you have text before an image, and when things get smaller, the text will go on top of the image, and you may not want that. You may want to reverse the order it's in. And so that's something I will show you in a little bit as well when we go and create our own. And right below that is going to be our column. So we have a row and then our column. Column is what is going to be inside of that row. That is going to be where your content is hosted. So if you want text on one side and image on another side, you can have one column on the left taking, half of the row, filling it with text. And on the other side of the row, you can have another column providing an image or whatever content you may want. And since I have this set to even, that means I share it evenly. One side gets 50, the other side gets 50. If I had it to right, one side gets 2/3, the other side gets 1/3. The side that's the smaller side is going to be the first one to shrink, while the dominant side will try to keep most of its spacing. So for right now, we're going to keep it even. We got one column, and inside this column, we have what is called a widget. So the widget actually provides you the actual way to add content. Widgets come in all forms, and there's different types to it. You can add headings and heading sizes as well to it. And like a lot of things in Cascade, they're all nested to each other. So we got our row, then we got our one column. And since we only have one column, it's going to take up everything. He doesn't have to share it with anyone. And inside that column, we have our widget. And our widget is what our actual content is. So inside our widget, we have different types. So we have a few over I'm going to go over. We have our WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. It's a simple editor that provides you a way to add images, text, links. If you want to increase the indent, similar to like a Microsoft Word document, it's easy to format your text, add images. And so that's going to be one of your bread and butter ways to add content to your page is with the WYSIWYG editor. And this is inside of a widget, inside of a column, that's inside of a row. So inside of our WYSIWYG, we have some example text here. I have a link right here, and I can also edit the link. And so I'm going to go over some of the core features of the WYSIWYG real quick. So I can highlight all this text here. If I want to increase the font size, I can, just like that. If I want to have it centered, I can click the Align Center. Like I said, very similar to a Microsoft Word document. I'm just going to back this up a bit. So it's very easy to use. If I want to add an image, I can as well. I can also add a video. If you need more room, you can full screen. And so from here, you have a much easier display of adding all your content. And so all this text and stuff is going to sit inside of that column. So if I have more columns, that means all these people are going to have to share that room inside that row. So some of the other things we have as well, we also have a carousel. So a carousel, exactly as it kind of sounds, it's a whole bunch of images that shows one at a time. And if you click the arrows on the left or right of it, it will let you slide in between them. And I'll show that shortly as well. And we'll have carousel, we have the WYSIWYG editor. We also have blocks. So if you want to do content that may be staggered or might be, one side an image, one side a text, you can just do a block. And this is type of stuff you can play around with and will be included in the documentation. Stuff you have to play around with to get the feel of it. And that's what I'm going to go over with some of the showcasing. So for blocks, a good example for a block, if I want, a whole bunch of text on one side and a full screen image taking up that 50% of that room on the other side, I can. And so I can add just 2 items per this row. So there's going to be 2 items, and they're going to share the entire row. From there, do I want them as blocks? Do I want them as cards, tiles? And I'm not going to get into it, but they're just different ways to display it. They have different formats. And then from here, you can also add your content. So to start with, we have a row. We only have one column. And inside that column, we got a widget that's running blocks. And now I get to say, hey, how many blocks do I want? I just want 2. Both of them are going to share the room. Okay, well, what do you want inside these blocks? And from here, I can add my content. I'm going to go over with more examples later, but I just want to show you some of the editing features you can do. Like I said, it's very simple. I haven't typed anything on my keyboard. I'm just clicking through this with my mouse. And so once you get to play around with it and go around, add content, it becomes a lot familiar. But this is how something is created, added, and nested in. So we have that covered. Now to move on. So if we want to add a page or add content, we can. And this is going to depend on what area we're in or what folder. I'm going to show you an example here. So I'm gonna go to commercial timber and I'm gonna open up timber sales. So I brought over some of the information over from DNRC itself. Oh, commercial timber, my bad. Oh, let me show you. Sorry, I didn't put it in Sandbox. I put it in the normal DNRC site. We'll come back to that. But for right now, let's go say where we want to add content. So I'm gonna open up commercial timber. This is now the folder I'm in, showing me up at the top. So now I'm in commercial timber. I want to add content. So I go up here at the top. And so now I can now add a page. I can open up this. And that's right there at the top, little plus sign. So now I got my page. Now it's going to ask me some information before everything proceeds. So what's the page name? I'm just going to call it page, display name, throw test. I'm going to title it test. Include in menu. Yes, we don't want breadcrumbs. So now I can, just like the other pages, it all has a format to follow. Do I want a banner? Of course. I'm going to choose a banner here. And so now, since I used that one recently, it's not going to show up that I used that recently, and I can just throw that in. I'm going to throw that banner in. And I'm going to call it just the test banner. Call that the test banner. I don't want any other content for that. And now we got my rows. So for my first row, I might say, I want the background to be this first color here. I want the heading to be called test row. And then I'm gonna show off how the columns work here a little bit more so you can actually visualize how they are set up. So I want this to take up the entire screen. So edge to edge, give me the full width. I want the layout to be even. I want them to share it evenly. So any content I have in there, they're all spaced out. They're all equal. I'm gonna add 2 columns. I want to have 2 columns inside this row. So I'm gonna click this plus sign right here. Okay. So now I got 2 columns inside this row. And you can always collapse it with this button right here, this up arrow. Collapse, collapse. A little bit easier to read. So I've got 1 row right here, and I got 2 columns inside of that. And since they're even, each one of them gets 50% or half the width of that row. I get half that screen. For this first row, I'm going to add some fake text. So I'm going to say fake text. I want to add an image. And so when I go to add an image, I have a few options here. I can choose internally. So that's something that's already hosted on your website. And then I can also choose externally. So if there's some image hosted somewhere, I can choose that. But just to keep it simple, I'm going to keep it on the website and select internal. I want my image. I'm going to go to browse. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click on example feature. I'm going to choose this one. I like this one. Here we go. And then now I can set the dimensions. I can also make sure that it's proportional. Image description, I'm going to say like image. And then also you can also apply some styling. Do I want this to sit to the left? Do I want this to sit in the middle? Do I want this to sit in the right? You have a little bit more control on it. So I want this to sit dead center. I want this dead center inside of my column. So there we go. I say okay. Now I just added my image. Grab my image here. Make sure it's centered. Cool. So fluid center. Cool. So I got my image in 1 column. So I'm going to close that out. So that column gets the image. Now for my next column, I am going to just smash my keyboard real quick. I just need some fake text. I'm going to align this to the center. And I'm going to make this nice and big, 24 pixels. Yeah. So I'm going to make this nice and big, add in my content. Cool. And I'm going to add a heading to this. Well, cool. There we go. So I got 2 columns. They both have content inside of that. I have 2 of those columns inside of this row right here. They are sharing it evenly. It's taking up the entire width of the screen. And then I also applied a color, so the entire row itself should have a background color. Cool. So I got everything I need. I can go up. So there's a few ways to submit the content, but I'm going to go over just a simple way of doing it. So we can preview draft. So this will keep it as a draft. So it's not officially inside of Cascade. So now I can preview it before I want it added to Cascade. And so we can see that here at the submit. So that means, yep, everything looks good to go. Put it to Cascade. or discard it. Like, I don't like this draft. Let me try something else. So now if I scroll down, I see, okay, this is the entire test row right here. I got one image on the left side. That's where I wanted it. And I got my text on the right side. So they're sharing it evenly. So even if I try making the size smaller, they're only going to share half until it collapses. So they are responsive. And this is where I was talking about where you can reverse it. The image is on top, the text is on bottom. If I wanted to, I can go back into the settings and say reverse this. And so the next time this does collapse when it's small, the text can go on top. So I have that. Now I want to submit this. I want to have this in Cascade. So I can add comments as well. So I can say this is just it automatically throws comments in there for you. This is just the first version. This version, I'll say just a test. And then I'll hit check content submit. So it will check for spelling. Spelling's awful. I'll just say ignore. Any broken links, any accessibility issues, it will also check as well. Everything looks good here. I'm going to say, okay, finish. So note, this is just adding it to Cascade. So no users see this. Only content editors can see this right now. Cool. I just added my content and there it is. Now, if I wanted to add another row, I'm going to show another example here. I'm going to click edit right here at the top. And note, I'm on this page right here. Once again, sandbox, trust land, commercial timber, and this page. So this is where I'm currently sitting. I'm going to open up edit, add another row. All I have to do is hit this plus sign right here, and it'll add a row right below that. Cool. Now I got another row. So for this one, I'm going to showcase if I wanted the layout to be a little asymmetrical. So call this one test 2. I want to have this background color a different one. And I want this layout to be the left side is going to be the smaller side. He's going to get 1/3 of the width, while the right side is going to get the majority. He's going to get 2/6 or 2/3. So I'm going to have this full width. Cool. I got my first column in here. I'm just going to throw some images in here. We already gone through it before, so I won't drag it out. Let's throw an image in here. Image description. Oh, yes. You have to add in a description. Okay. Description. Cool. I've added my image to this first column here. And then I want to add another column. So I hit this plus. Cool. I got another column. Same thing here. I'm just going to add fake text and center it. And this is just to show an example of how things are formatted. And as well as what I'd walk over is that you can always add more widgets inside of a column. So if you want, let's say 2 sets of text on top of each other. So I got the second column here. I got the widget. I'm going to add another widget inside of that. So now just to show the setup again, I got my row. I got 2 columns. And then for my second column, I got 2 widgets. So they're just sharing one column. And for there, I'll do, say, fake text 2, center it. Cool. So looks like everything's good to go. Once again, I can preview it. And once it loads, it should be able to show. Cool. There's our first row. They're sharing half and half. And here's our second row. Now, when I said the left side, I wanted to go to the left. That means now this image on the left side is going to be smaller. He can take up less space. And the right side gets more. He gets 2/3. And now I have 2 widgets on top of each other. So this one is here's one widget. The other one here is another widget. And that's nested inside of a column. So it's very easy to add content. And once you play around, you can see how easy it is just to get stuff automatically formatted and thrown in. And to do a better example of this 2 widgets, I'm going to go back to my second row, my second column, and then I'm going to say for my second widget, I want to add an image carousel. So I'm going to click on carousel, open this up, and now I can add slides. And each slide is going to have an image with some text. So just to go over again, got my second column, 2 widgets. Second widget in there has a carousel instead. And that carousel, I'm just going to give him 2 slides. So I'll say 2. And I will go over again constantly. You will hear me what's nested inside of each other, because I know it might be confusing when you hear a column inside of a row, inside of a row, inside of a column. When I first started, I know that was a bit jarring. So I will repeat myself a few times for that. So I got my carousel. I have 2 slides here. I'm gonna call this one slide 1, throw an image in here. Let's do this example image here. Gonna have the text in the center. And then you can also additionally add a link. So if you want to throw an internal link if you want. So an internal link is like, I want to send this to a different department or a different page, I can. So I can click here, and now it'll let me browse Cascade or my site I'm working on. And let's say if you click on this image, I'm going to make it, you're going to be Board of Oil and Gas's problem. So I'm going to have you go into Board of Oil and Gas. I'm going to click on, I'm going to have you go to their forms. And so this is under the browse. I went from this, the root right into BOG, their folder, and I went to their forms page. That's what I'm choosing. So now when a user clicks on this image on the carousel, they're going to go to the Board of Oil and Gas, and they're going to go straight to the forms page. And so that's a very easy way to redirect users to other places for any type of content you would need. We got the first slide, got my image. I want to center the text. I'm having it. So if you click on the image, you're going to go to Board of Oil. You're going to be their problem. I want to have this link open in a new tab as well. Okay, now for my second slide. It's going to browse. I'm going to throw in another image. So I'm going to go to Browse, go back, click on my image. Inside my images, I'm just going to choose the showing firefighters. I'm going to choose the lamb. Click the lamb. So I'm going to choose lamb. We'll call this one just lamb. Text align, center, example text, lamb. And I can set it to an external link as well. So if I want to send someone to Google or somewhere that's not inside my site, I can send them to somewhere else. So if I want to send them to rules.mt.gov to reference something, or they can look it up, I can throw that in there. And so I'm just going to throw that in there as well, just real quick. There we go. I want this to open up in a new tab for them so that they don't have to lose where they were on this current page. Cool. I got everything set. So just to go over one more time, we got our page. We got 2 rows here. On my second row, the one on the lower bottom, I got 2 columns. And this first column gets less room because I have this set out to the left. But for my second column, I got 2 widgets sharing this. I got one that just has text, and I got another one that's displaying a carousel that has 2 slides. I'm sure that was a lot of talking just to say they were nested inside of each other, but there's a lot of nesting in here. So you can see how the process goes of going inside of something, adding content. And if I want to further expand that, I can duplicate it or nest inside again. So cool, got all my content. I can also skip the check and if I don't want to preview the draft, I already know what's going to look like. I can click the 3 dots here in the top right, hit check content and submit. So this is not going to let me preview it. This is going to go straight to adding it to Cascade. Everything looks good here. Cool. So we got our first row here, sharing spots, and I got my second row here. And now I have that carousel. Carousels are pretty big. You don't usually nest them inside of that, but just to show. So since this one only gets 1/3, he's small. This guy gets 2/3, so he's gonna be bigger. And a carousel, I can click the little arrows right here, move it to the left or right. The images are different sizes, so it's gonna bounce up and down a little bit, but that's my carousel. I can now add images, and now if I click on learn more, I now get sent to rules.mt.gov. I misspelled that, but here's slide 1. I click on learn more. I now got sent to Board of Oil and Gas, and I'm now on their forms page like that. Now, of course, the users won't be redirected like this in Cascade. On the front end, they'll get a new tab. I'm going to go back to Trustlands, click View Folder, and I'm going to go right back to Commercial Timber, go right back to my test page. So next, so we added our images, we've added links, we've added a page, added content, we've been able to navigate our folder. Next up, I'm going to show you how to move around assets, copy them, and other ways to access a way to edit them, and also checking out versions. So if you want to go back to a change you made or go forward to a change you made, you can. So say I have test here. He is in commercial timber under trust land under my root. So I say I want him to be, I'm going to send him somewhere else. I want to send him to my About folder. So I have my About folder right here. I'll open this up. I'm going to grab, there's two ways I can do this. I can right click. If I scroll down, I get more options here. Zoom in a little bit. So I right clicked it. I get some options here. I can edit, I can publish, I can move it, rename it, copy, all this jazz. So moving it moves the entire page itself and puts it in another folder. Renaming it just changes the name of the file that you see. Copy just makes a copy of that, and you can put it in the same folder or some other folder. Delete, deletes. And I'll show you publishing as well. And so we're just going to move this folder just to show you real quick. So if I want to move something, I hit move. It say, hey, what folder you want to put this in? And from here, I can browse whatever folder. I'm going to say I'm going to put this in About. That's where I want to drop it. And another thing too is I'm going to show you as well unpublishing. So if you have this on your front, your actual website for people to see, and if you move it, users won't be able to see it where it originally was. So it's important to make sure that you do unpublish, and I will show that shortly. Unpublish it so that users don't end up with a 404 page. So when you do unpublish it, it's going to be taken down from the live website. It's going to still be in Cascade. You can move it right over. And once it's moved over, you can republish it again. And all the navigation's already set up for it. So users can be redirected over there. But that's just an example of where I would want it to move. So I'm not going to move it. It's going to keep it simple for now. Now to do publishing. So I have everything here. I think it looks great. I want my users to see this. So the first thing is once everything is good to go, I want to publish it. And now the workflow starts with this. I go to my website, I add a page, I add content to my page. Everything looks good in Cascade. I'm going to show you a quick way to preview it. So if you want to make sure that everything looks good on the big screen, here in the top right, you have more options here. And so in the more area, and this is also including the documentation, all the little things we have up here. We have our versions, and we also have full screen preview. So I'm going to do full screen preview because I don't want all the Cascade stuff in my way. So this will make a temporary little link for you to see your changes. And this, no one else can see this but you. And so now I can see this in the full screen of how this is going to look like. Okay, this looks better. It's taking up this space. Cool. So now I can see this, how it looks like before I put it to the test website. So now I want to publish this. So you got a few things here. A publish report, this just provides a summary of what you published, if there's any errors, and this goes straight to your notifications. Additionally, here at the top, if you want to publish this at a different time, maybe later at night when it's quieter, maybe at a different time when there's a set schedule for this, when it's supposed to go live, you can. I can pick a calendar and I say, hey, I want this website to go live on Halloween at this time, and so that my users can see this only at this time afterwards. You can set that up. And it's important to know that as well, because when you do publish something, there is a queue that Cascade has. So if other people are working on other websites, they may be publishing stuff. At most, it will be publishing 2 things at a time. And so once it's filled up with 2 things, everyone else has to wait for their turn before it gets put onto the site. So if you know everything's busy right now, or it's a big publish, or it's a big site change, you might want to schedule it for a quieter time later in the afternoon when people are on their lunch. And that's just something to keep in mind. And I will show you how to check your publish queue. Don't touch that. And so you have your destinations. Destinations, very important here. You got your test website. This is the test DNRC sandbox. You see the little test. And then you got the production website. We don't want to put this on production yet. We want to make sure it's good on test first before you do production. Even if you look on the live preview, even if you look on the full screen, everything looks good. I don't need to put this to test. I can put this on production. You want to put it to test first because sometimes it might interact with different files or folders that might screw up the page. So it's important to put this on the test website first. Everything looks good. It's interacting fine. And if it's good on the test, then you can push it to prod. And this was a question I had before in another training is, do you want to keep these kind of updated at the same time? It is a good idea to keep both test and prod updated at the same time, because if you have like an outdated version of test that you can just throw files in, and you go to publish something to prod after, but your prod is more modern, it has more updates, it has more publishes, and test is a little bit behind, things might look different. So it's important to keep test kind of in the same loop as your production website so that they are kind of on the same level. Otherwise, if you go to test something, the environment might be different. So just keep them both updated the best you can. So first we're gonna do test. All right, hit publish. Cool. So here at the bottom, you got your publish queue. So I can just middle mouse click that, just open that in a new tab. So this will show me my queue. So right now it's 25% done. This should take real quick. Done. This will also tell me if there's other websites that are publishing right now, any type of queue. So this is a good thing to check in case something's stuck, not showing up on the website. You can always check your publish queue to make sure that it's actually not in the process. So cool. All right, I threw this to the test website, so I want to go to that. There's a few ways to just go check. So here in the top right, I got more. I can just scroll here to the bottom. I can do live. So this will just take me to the live website of where I'm currently am. Since it goes to the production site by default, I just have to open up the text up here. I'm gonna type in test dash, and here I am. I'm on this thing I just published. So now I see everything. Oh, wow, it looks good, looks great. I'm now ready for production. I can now go here to publish again. I now want this on production website, so no test. I hit publish. Once again, goes to the queue, gets published. So now if I click more here in the top right again, and if I go to live, it takes me to the production website. Let me refresh the page a bit. I think it's still queued. I'm gonna give that a second. So another thing to also do to remember up here in the top right, you also got versions. Versions are very helpful, and we can only keep up to 20 is the max history. Versions is every change to a page, file, or folder lets you go back to that. So if you make a change that broke everything and you didn't realize till later, you can go to your versions here and you can see that, oh, this was my first change today at 2:33. I want to go back to that. I can. And you get an entire list of this as well. Oh, I'm gonna check the page real quick. Sure to publishes. Big publish queue. Check. If I want to check my publish queue, up here in the top right, you got the 3 bars of the burger menu. So I'm gonna click that. I'm gonna go to publish queue. Jobs. Page. Try publishing this again. Yep. Production site. Make sure it's actually going through in the queue. So yeah, max of 2 slots. So only 2 things can be published. Okay, this is ours. It's very fast for a page, but if you do, like, let's say a full site publish, that can take a while. So it's always important to kind of block out a certain amount of time for that. All right. Well, at least we got it working on test. We'll come back to that. So now to check with versions. Versions are very important to keep in mind because if you do screw up or mess up on something, it's always important to know how to go back. So I'm gonna go open up here in the top right for more. I'm gonna go to versions. Cool. I'm gonna go back to the previous edit I made today, which was that row I added. I can do 3 things here. I can delete this. I can compare it with my current version I have. So if I want to just see what the difference is, I can always open that. But just to keep it simple for right now, I'm just going to restore to this version. So restore. So now it will bring me back to my very first edit I made to this page, which was that first row. And now that second row is gone. And so now I'm like, okay, I want to have this added to my website. I'm going to throw this onto the test website again, publish. So now my test website will also now go back to this version. So the process is more in the top right, go to your versions, click the previous one you want. Once it's done, make sure to publish this so that your actual website knows that there's been a change. So now that's been done. Now I'm gonna show you how to, oh, here we go, our production site. So this is our production site. So it published, everything looks good. Now I'm gonna go back. Here's my web page. I'm put it back to the previous version. I now want to take this down. I don't want my users to see this. I need to make edits to this, and I don't want them clicking on anything they're not supposed to. I can do a thing called unpublish, which is exactly as it sounds like. So I can click here on the top right. I go to unpublish. So now this will take it off the live test site or the live production site, but still will be in Cascade for you to make your edits or changes. So I'm going to unpublish this. Boom. So now it's going to be queued. So it'll take it down from my site, and still and it's important to know this because, like I said, if you have something you put out there and you're worried users are going to click on something they're not supposed to, it's important to unpublish it first, make your changes, and then just publish it again. And so that allows a lot more control over. Yeah.
Does it say on here if it's published or not? Like, can you easily look at this and see if this is a published page?
I don't know the simplest way. The easiest way I would do, I'm sure there's a better way. I just click live. And so if you want to check if it's on the live site, you can just go to here to more and click live, and that will show you if the site is down or not. I'm fairly sure there's a way that for Cascade to check if a site is unpublished. I'm sure I'm missing it, but the quickest way is just to click here, go to your live site, and then see if you got a 404. Because right now I unpublished it, so now it's down. I can't see it, so they can't see it. But I'm sure there is a indicator somewhere.
Okay.
Yes,
and my
sorry.
next question is, when you look at versions, are you only seeing your work on the specific page you're on, or are you seeing like what all shows up when you click versions? Is it only your own edits?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's every edit to this asset I'm on. So right now I'm on this asset. I'm on this page. It's going to tell me the entire history of this page. So if someone makes an edit, some other user makes an edit, and I found out that the thing they made actually broke it, I can actually go back to my version I made, or I can go back to what the one that worked before that. So it's local to the page, to the asset itself. This doesn't affect the entire website. This isn't only to the user. It is all hosted on this app. So if two people are working on it, it'll tell you who made the edits. So you're like, wow, this version I made is pretty awful. I'm gonna go back to Johnny's version, and I can go back to that. You can see I can go back to his edit. So this really allows me to do that. And as well as you can go back, you can also go forward. So here we got this V2. So this is when I added that new row. And since I went back, I can now go forward. And so I want to go back and say, hey, I actually like that row. I'm gonna click this. I'm actually want to just restore this version. And so now it'll bring back that row I made. And so it'll show you when it was made, who made it, and you can also compare the changes to see, hey, what did this version have? So that's something you can play around in Cascade. And I'm just going to try and keep this simple to show. I'm trying not to overwhelm you, but that's why we have the documentation, because everything I'm doing now is going to set you by. And I'll make sure to check up on that too to see if there's a way to check if a site is published. That is a good question. But for me, all I did was kind of open the website to see if I get a 404. So I do. So users can't see this. And now I can make my edits. I say, okay, everything's good again. I want to republish this. Publish again. Boom. So within a little bit, it'll be published again. So just to go over, the workflow, just to say after you log in, what would a workflow would look like? So I'm logged in. I got my dashboard. It's the morning. Got my coffee. I have my site. Open this up. Cool. I'm in DNRC. I want to add something new today. I'm gonna go to my trust land folder. I want to go to my about page or my about folder, or maybe commercial timber. I'm gonna open this one up. I want to work on my test page, so I can just click on the page. It will load up everything for me. From here, I can edit, I can publish, I can add comments, I can restore a previous version if I want. If I want to unpublish it, everything's all there for me. A lot of the core functionality is at a mouse click away. So it's very easy to just, and like I also mentioned before, once you're in Cascade, playing around, clicking on things, it's a lot easier to learn once you go through that process. But just to show you how something would look like that. We just go straight to my page, make my edits, publish, unpublish. Very simple. You're in your own environment. You don't have to worry about a lot of other things. And once we have the permissions set up, it's going to be very simple. You go to your department, you go to whatever you're supposed to work on, and you can do that, and you won't have to worry about you accidentally mess with someone else's stuff. So there we go. I have my test site. Everything looks good. All right, now to show some other things that might become helpful. So here in the top right, I got my user menu, and I also have my notifications. So I'm gonna check that out. So notifications tell me what I've been doing. So like, oh, I published this, I unpublished that, and it can tell me if there's been issues. So I want to I can mark it unread, throw it away. So yeah, you can delete these. You can also get all your notifications if you want to grab all of them. So it does tell you, at a glance of what's going on. If I click the user menu here at the top right again, I can go to my history just to see all what the last thing I touched. What's the last thing I edited? And so these are my recent assets, any drafts. And it's important to check for drafts as well, just in case. Because if you have a draft on, like, let's say that test page I was working on and someone else came to work on that, it will tell them that I have a draft being edited and to message me if I'm still working on it or I'm done with it. And so it's important to make sure that you also check your drafts sometimes. And it will warn you if you try editing a page that someone else is working on it with that draft. So yeah, you have your recent and drafts are going to be your main things here, or any starred content or favored content. Additionally, up here, so I'm right now just going as the identity of Ryan just to show you his point of view. Go back to the dashboard. So just to go over again, just a quick little overview. So we have our dashboard. We got our widgets, our quick handy widgets to show us what's going on at a glance, whatever might be going on, anything that's broken, any stale content, you can set that up as well. So if you have content that you want to make sure you update once in a while, you can set up stale content so that it does tell you like, hey, it's been 3 months, you might want to update this. You can set that up as well. Okay, cool. I think I'm good. I'm gonna go to my sandbox. Here I am. I start in the root, which is the sandbox DNRC, the main head honcho folder. I'm going to go to trust lands. I want to go to commercial timber here. I want to go to my test. Cool. And now from here, I can edit and start my work. And so very simple to just get to your work and get your stuff done. And then I want to show you as well. So I'm going to go back under as my account. I want to go under, I was supposed to put this in sandbox, but I accidentally put it in DNRC. But trust land. And I wanted to show you a site I pulled over. So this took me about 10 minutes. Nothing's perfect or formatted, but I brought over everything there within 10 minutes. So I can show you how I built this, for example. This was very easy to throw in there and plug in the information. Very easy to throw in the image. And if I go to edit, I can show you how some of this would look like. So I have the title up here, timber sales, previous year. I added a color to it. I want this to be the full width. I want the layout to be that the left side gets the majority of the screen. So the right side gets the short stick. I have 2 columns. I got one column here that is showing off the image and my table. And if I always want, and if I, like I said, it's like Word. So if I want to insert a table, I can click the table right here, scroll over to table, and then how many columns and rows I want. So I want a 4x4, 5x5, I can control it. Once I've added in my table, I can plug in my information. I can right click it. I can left click it. Right here, I can delete a table, add it. That's all built in. And if you scroll over it, it will tell you a brief description of what it does. And if I want to add something to my table's properties, if I want to increase the height of it, padding, border, cell spacing, it's all built into there. And so I built a quick table, threw in some information, threw in an image for one column. Cool, that column's done. If I go to my other column here, this is all the links I've added from the site and some example text. It's all right there. And this took me about 10 minutes of throwing in content, and I can pick up and drop it very easily. It's very easy to make edits. So that's one helpful thing about Cascade is once you play around with it, you find out that it's very simple to do what you need to do. There we are.
Chase, can you show maybe rearranging rows? I'm just curious if it's really important that you go into it knowing the order that you want things, or if it's possible to rearrange them easier if you decide something else.
Let me go back. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me show you that. Go back as Ryan. All right, so I'm back as Ryan. Top left to go to my site. I'm gonna go back to Sandbox. I'm gonna open up Trustland. All right, I'm in Trustland. I'm gonna go to Commercial Timber and then to my test page. So here I am with my test page. So remember, we have 2 rows. only added 2 rows. We got this first row right here with the blue background and the second one with the lighter blue background. Now to start moving them around, I can go to edit. Oh yeah, that was what I was supposed to cover. So 3 little buttons here, very simple. One removes, one adds adds a new one right below it. And these arrows right here lets you move them above or below each other. So right here, I can click this arrow that moves that row in the bottom right on top. So now he's going to be the one on top. Okay, looks good. I added that row to the top. I'm going to just make sure this content's submitted. Boom. And it will tell, and it will put in the comments of what I did. It will say moved all this content where it is. So if someone goes to pick up and see the different versions, they can see like, oh, he moved this row up here. I want to go back to that version. So cool. So now that carousel's on top, entire row's on top, and this entire row is on bottom, just like that. And the same thing with columns. I will show you real quick as well. So if I have, let's say this column here, I want to have this be to the right. So now that the carousel will get the smaller side, I can now move the columns. So I'll move this column right up. So the carousel will still keep the bigger side, or actually I'll have the carousel be, I'll keep it simple. The carousel will get the small side and the image will get the bigger side. So now I swap the column spaces. So that one column that had the carousel and all the images, I moved them to the bottom. Now I just go check, commit, and submit. Cool. And so the arrows are very simple to use. That's how you move content above or below each other. And that's going to be the order they're going to be in. Cool. So now this image gets this entire section right here. And this one gets the smaller column. So now he gets that smaller side. So if I want to switch it back, I can just move the columns right above each other. So that's going to be your bread and butter. A row, that's going to be a new section of content. A column, that's where some of the content is going to be hosted in and what side of the row they're going to be on. And inside that column, you have a widget. The widget is, hey, what type of content you're throwing in here. I will show you one more time. We got our row, we got a column, we got our widget, and inside that widget, I have an image and whatever content I want to have or format to insert. And like I said, there was different things you can play around with and type. And just going to keep it simple today of what you probably be using the majority of, which is going to be the WYSIWYG, carousel, blocks, all of that. And once you're in there, I do really recommend just throwing stuff in and seeing how it interacts and works, because there won't be enough time to describe all of that. But our 2 columns are inside this row. Cool. And so this is our page, and nice and neat. So now I can just check content and submit. And now I've put this. Boom. That's it. So, and then once I've made changes, I just have to publish again. Publish is not automatic, just to go over. So any changes I make in Cascade, I have to manually publish it to the site. And like I said, feel free to go to the top right for more, do a full screen preview, make sure everything looks good, then to test. And I emphasize this first to test first, just to make sure it's interacting with the rest of the website. Perfectly fine. And then to prod. And you want to make sure test isn't too behind your production site. You don't want to just make, like, oh, I already know what it's going to look like, I'm going to throw it on prod. Because eventually you're going to keep doing that and test is going to be left behind. And when you go look at your test website, it's going to look like something from 6 months ago. So just make sure they're both updated the best you can. And so that was a brief overview of Cascade. And I'm making sure we have covered as much as I could. So we got our widgets, we got our content, we got our site, folder nav, how to move around in these folders. I'll just go over this one more too. If I want to add content, like I said, if I want to go to forestry, if I'm in forestry, I'll go to view folder. And you have to hit view folder to actually move what directory you're in. If I simply left click a folder, I'm just previewing it. I'm not moving myself. So I clicked view folder. I'm in forestry. I'm going to click about. And then now I'm inside of about, I can now just add my content. And then I can throw my page in there. And that's good to go. And so that's an example of making that. Additionally, you can always right click your pages. I'll zoom in again because this is maybe a little bit small. So you can always right click like a page and click edit, publish. More. Here we go. So edit, publish, view on live website. So whatever here is in the top right for more, you can always right click your page and open this up as well and see the versions and rename it, move it, all that jazz. And once we have all the permissions set up, play around with it. It is, once you get to adding content, it's going to come naturally to you. And we'll have the documentation so that you can follow along of how do I add a page again? It's going to set you from cradle to grave of how to add a page, how to add content to that page, how to format that content so that you won't be left in the dust when you start this. And so, and then we went over our versions. If you want to go back, you can also go forward, how to move assets, your history and notifications up here in the top right for your name, whatever things you've messed around with, and any notifications. And that's going to be your mainstay. And that's how you provide content, publish it, take it down if you need to, edit. Any questions, anything you want me to run over again?
Jess Og has questions. I think no one's surprised.
Well,
Hold on a second. So one question.
no
So
worries.
drafts. Are drafts unpublished pages? Is that what drafts are?
Exactly. Their
Okay.
drafts are unpublished changes. They are sitting locally with your account. So no other person can see your draft.
Okay.
So if I go, and I can show this. So I go, sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, so that's something that I run into now when we make updates on the pages and you save it and you close out. And sometimes on our current website, they automatically publish and sometimes they don't, and you won't know until someone says your stuff, I can't find it. So that's why I'm looking for a place on this page where it might tell you it's published or it's not. It looks like the publish option is always there, so it doesn't necessarily indicate that it is or isn't published on the live site. So, but it sounds like if you look at your drafts, if you have nothing in there, then all of your edits have been published. That seems like one way to check. Is that correct?
One way to assume, yes. Yeah. And if you want to see a page, if it's live, you can always click the more button and click the live just to see if this page is live. And like I said, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna check in Cascade's documentation and see if there's a way to see if something is live or has been published. Another quick way to see as well. Actually, no, that was it. Just the live website. I want to say versions, but I don't think that's correct. And just show you how a draft would look like if I didn't finish a draft. So let's say I'm just going to change this to test 2, and I'm going to hit close. It will say saving draft real quick. And so if I refresh my page, so the next time I come back to my page, it'll say submit at the top. It will say, hey, you haven't made any changes to Cascade. This is just on your account. So other users can't see my draft. Other Cascade users can't see my draft. This is just local to me. And I'm going to show you from a point of view from another person. So I'm going to go to my account, for example. Go to Sandbox DNRC. I'm going to go to where I was making that draft under Trust Land, Commercial Timber, and that page. Up. So if I go to edit, it will tell me at the bottom, like, hey, Ryan is currently editing a draft of this page. Talk to them, and it'll give me the C number as well. Say, hey, just to make sure you guys don't have any conflict. Because if I go to publish something, to change a name from test to example, he might do something to change it from test to cheese. And since he's going to be the latest addition, it's going to end up being cheese. So his latest changes are going to override mine. So it's important to talk to people and to see. So if I go to edit, once again, it tells me at the bottom, hey, there's a draft.
Okay. And it looked like on
and all that. So yes.
Edit Ryan's page that you had up, it actually said draft in the upper left.
Exactly. Yep. So if I want to go back to Ryan again real quick. So I'm gonna go back to my page. Yeah, so right here, it's going to be in the top left for draft. So you can, because since your draft is going to show you your preview of your work, you might be like, Here, let me see what the page actually looks like real quick. And I can go to current. And so this will show me what's currently saved in Cascade, what all my associates see. And if I want to go back to what I was working on, I can just click on draft. And as well, if I'm on current and I'm seeing what's actually in there, it will tell me like, hey, you have a draft that you made today at 3:09 p.m. Do you want to start a new one? Do you want to get rid of this? But once again, I can go back to draft and go back to previewing what I was working on.
Okay.
Because
And then
a draft will automatically. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish what you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. I was pretty much saying it's going to just show you a preview. When you have a draft currently floating around on this page, like your own draft, it's just going to show you a preview of your work unless you manually switch it back to what's actually on there.
Okay. And then from here, if you click submit, that's the same as publishing, or is that not true?
Submit makes it where I put the changes to Cascade first, because it goes from draft, then to Cascade, then publishing it to test website, then publishing it to prod website.
You still have to click publish to test after submit.
Exactly. If I hit submit, all this is doing is just making the changes in Cascade. Nothing to test, nothing to prod. Unless there's something that says you're publishing to a destination, none of your users were going to see it, and it's not going to go to test or prod. I can try to, let me see if I can find a way to just kind of type this out.
Hey, Chase, I might
quick little text
jump in to help some of this out. So just think of a draft as like your local copy of what you individually are working on. You don't know if you're going to actually submit them to the system itself. Once you submit, it saves it to the system. So anyone in DNRC with access could edit those same changes that you made and then publishes that final step to get it live on the website. So submit, save, sort of interchangeable within Cascade as a whole. I think the other part that you're really looking for is actually under the details icon. And I'll have Chase show you this in a sec. But in there, you can see who last edited it, a time it was published, a date timestamp of when it was published. So if that field is blank, you're going to know that it has never been published to the website. Or if I made a change today and then tried to tomorrow and I don't see tomorrow's date on it, I know that my changes actually weren't published either to the test or production site.
Okay. Awesome.
Exactly. So yeah, that's a better explanation. And Caitlin, what do you want me to show them? It was the
so if you just back out of this, either close the draft or submit your changes, up in the top right where you have the edit pencil, the publish, the comments, there's that details icon. If you select details and then go to properties.
Yep.
This is where you can see who created it, who last modified, and then it has the last published information. So right now, because this has been our example, it has today with 2:55 p.m. as the last published and who last published it so that you have that information.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So you can quickly see if you got this part published or not. That's helpful.
Yep, exactly. And see how current it is.
Exactly.
Whether you're making changes today and you don't see that reflected, you can just go ahead and publish the page.
Awesome. I heard you say, Chase, that you'll be you've got some documentation for us. It has more details. So if this is covered in that, that's fine. But my question is about uploading images. And that might, I'm sure there's probably some governance internally about how we do that. But right now on our current site, there's, it gets kind of complicated with making sure that your images are the correct size and format. I'm seeing some head nodding from Stain as well. So, maybe that's covered in the document on how we make sure that's right and who can upload and what size they are and that kind of thing. So you can mention that. That'd be great.
Yeah. There's a few things. Some things when that will ask for an image, for example, banner will say, the minimum requirement is 1600 by 200. So this will say what recommends you for what size of text. And if I click on the, submit area for this image, I can actually see myself of like how big this is, what path it is in, and what type of image as well. And if I were to go to upload, I can upload my images from here, but for most part, for the places that's going to demand for an image, it is at least going to ask you for that. And in our documentation, I will personally play around with some adding the images, let's say to here, to see what works well, and to show some examples of how like a 400 by 400 image would look, or even find examples from your website that you might use. If I can actually, if I go back to the example page I made for you guys, I ported over.
While you're typing that, I was just going to say, from what I understand, in order for us to put an image on our specific page, it first has to be living in that underscore images folder. Is that right?
We have it. It can be put technically into any folder you'd like, but to keep it simple, you can have it to the images folder. And at least for if you're going to have a lot of different images, it would be smart to have a folder inside the images folder and to have it be like for this department.
Right.
So I'm just showing you a quick way to add images. And once we get to the nitty gritty of setting up the folders, where they will be hosted, how they will be accessed. And that's something I will mention in my documentation for best practice, because when you have like a lot of images in a single folder, that's hard to navigate. So you can nest the folders inside of each other, say, hey, this is for Board of Oil. This is going to be the banners inside of Board of Oil. And from there, it will be easy to grab from. If I open up this image here, or this example page I have here. So I just brought your image straight from there. I just downloaded it and uploaded it. Go to column, go to widget. But here it is. I can always resize it as well if I'm in here. So I have the resizer, and I can adjust this, and it'll tell me what size I'm at, 900, 600. Additionally, if I click this image right here, the image, I can also adjust the dimensions and also adjust if it needs to be proportional. So if I want to adjust it to like, hey, make this a little bit smaller. I want this to be 800. It'll automatically set that to 600. And I'll say, okay. And then boom. Now this will adjust the image for me. And so there's little handy tools to tell you what image you're working with. But for your sanity's sake, it would be important to have folders inside of images to dedicate to what images it's hosting. I just wanted to show, though, how you would access an image, throw one in, and make edits. So now the image is smaller, a little bit easier to digest, and from there. So a lot of handy features for there, so you never really have to go outside of Cascade and make some quick edits in like Microsoft Paint. It's all built into there.
That's great.
So that's a good example.
And I appreciate, best management, that kind of stuff from you. And I don't know if Cassie might be working on something in her governance too as well, on just quality, image quality, or if you'll be covering that in yours. So just either way, I think we're all kind of eager to get some help with that, because getting the images right has been kind of a struggle on the current website. So I appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll find some examples in the document because. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chase. Yeah, that'll be part of our documentation and governance with the website, is to have some guidelines on like quality image standards for the website. And I also want to do a series of webinars and in the field training on like how to adjust your camera settings on your phone and how to think about taking a good picture. So more of that to come down the road.
Thank you.
Cool. I'll wrap this up so we don't go over time. I'll give you guys back, I think, 10 minutes. I do apologize. It is a bit lengthy. But yeah, our documentation will have nice, pretty pictures with big, fat red arrows strewn across. And like I said, cradle to grave, it'll sit you through from nothing to getting something in there. So it is going to handhold you with the entire process. Like, hey, how do I add an asset? How do I add an image? Here's how you add an image to a page. Here's how you add an image to your folder. It's all going to be there. And stuff that I wanted to, stuff I wanted to know about when I first started, I'm also including as well, so that it should be an easy transition to Cascade. Cool. All right. Do we have any questions, quick concerns, complaints?
I had a question about this sandbox DNRC. So it's just a kind of a practice area, right?
Exactly. It is like a little playground just to make edits, add content, see how it looks, how it because when you're actually playing around with it, you'll get a better idea of how it all interacts. And so
Okay.
just somewhere to practice some
So-
of the things we'll have.
So we can go in there and just start figuring this out before we go live and everything's over in Cascade.
Yes,
Okay.
it is
Yes.
going to be like your training ground.
Okay, thanks.
And please
And-
do.
Yes, yes, I will echo that. Please go play around in this sandbox environment. If you want to start adding your content that really is going to live on the final website, please feel free to do so. And we can go ahead and grab some of that content when the time comes to transfer it to the actual site that we're developing. The only sort of word of caution is we are working on the overall theme of the website. So the exact theming of the sandbox isn't going to match the final product, but at least gives you a point in time to play around with Cascade, get used to editing, adding your content, things like that. Once we have the design finalized, we'll start opening the actual site up to you guys to continue adding content, continue playing around, but feel free to do whatever you want to that sandbox. You're not going to hurt anyone else. That really is for all of you guys at DNRC.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. All right. That's it. Any more questions?
I have one more, sorry. Can you help me track how we know the
No, you're good.
navigation? So under commercial timber, how that will, that parent folder,
Mhm.
how does that show in the navigation? Show me that again, please.
Yes.
So you'll see commercial
yeah,
timber
so
and then
just
you'll
to
see
show-
these. Okay.
I'll start from the beginning. So yeah, we have our DNRC root folder. These are all the folders and then the departments. Each of these, let's say departments, if I open up Trustland's, folder has an index. This is your like your main page for Trustland. This is your landing page. So inside that folder that has an index, and that navigation will have under the name of Trustland. And inside of that, the links, because every folder comes with a index. The folder just hosts the other pages, but the index is what, if I go to the index of about, that's your about page. If I go to the index of commercial timber, that's your commercial timber landing page.
And so my question is, what if as we're going in this, we realize that we need like a fourth tier under, commercial timber, the index page will show, and then it'll be timber sales. How do we direct, navigation under timber sales, or will it not be in the parent navigation below this tier? Does that make sense?
I think I followed what you're
I'm
saying, Jess.
trying to map it out.
So
You might have a better answer.
inside the commercial timber folder, you want another subset of pages. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So it would still be following like the add content process. You'd add in another folder, name it whatever you want those set of sub pages to be in that folder. And then once that folder is created, you would create an index page, because every folder has an index page as that main landing page for the folder, and then place any additional pages you want within that folder.
Okay. So go to the parent folder,
I
add
love
folder.
cameras.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
I can
Yep,
see you in
I
that
can. I'll
process
run it over with you real quick.
and working through this.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Now I know what you're
If
talking
you-
about. Yeah. So we have commercial timber. So you can't. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if this
Oh,
is too
okay.
quick for this part of it, we can help you walk through some of these, even down the road of, I need to add a huge group
Yep.
of pages. We can help with some of that too.
Okay. Nope, that was perfect. I
Exactly.
just didn't
Yeah, so
see
if you
where
wanna
we had
nest-
a folder. No, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. So yeah, I'm in commercial timber. I added a folder. I make sure that folder has an index page, and from there I can add my pages to that folder. And now they've nested inside of each other. That's it. All
Awesome.
right. Let me get rid of this.
Make
Cool.
a quick comment there. Like if we're getting to that fourth level of navigation, that's probably going to be some like highly detailed legalese that like someone that is incredibly familiar with that program or whatever it might be, like has to have that really specific language, because we're going to lose people pretty quickly after like 3 clicks in the website. So if we get to a fourth level, it's either highly specific or we've gone too far.
All right. Yeah, so yeah, that's it. By the end of the day, Cascade just a mixture of clicking on stuff and nesting them. You nest your columns, you nest your pages, you nest your folders. Everything's nested. But please try out Sandbox. If you want to try out your own pages, try copying them. That's a good start too, to kind of recreate them and play around. It's for you to try out and experiment with, and we'll have the documentation at your side and walk you through with it. Any more questions?
Thanks, Chase.
All righty. All right. I'm gonna give you guys 3 minutes back. I hope you guys all enjoy it. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Chase, so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, happy to help.
Thanks.